Picture this. You're in front of your latest prospect, closing the biggest deal of your life. Your pitch decks were perfect. Your scripts, flawless. And when the time came to answer the golden question of, are you ready to move forward? Nothing happened. For everyone who loves sales, this is their worst nightmare. But fear not, because in this podcast, we're unraveling the enigma behind those missed opportunities. From appointments that evaporate to presentations that felt like a Broadway show but ended in awkward silence, we're dissecting it all. Welcome to Love Your Sales.
This podcast is presented by Genhead. Genhead leverages AI so small and medium-sized businesses can find their ideal clients to make more sales. Other companies talk about AI, but we are using it every day to drive down marketing costs and increase revenue. Learn more at genhead.com. That's genhead.com.
I am thrilled to record another episode of Love Your Sales with Patrick Riley, the CEO of Genhead, also our official sponsor of the Love Your Sales podcast. Patrick Riley is a 30-year veteran in the sales industry. He has experience in senior management roles in manufacturing and logistics and technology sector. Most recently, Mr. Riley was the CEO of New Horizons of Wisconsin, but now the CEO of Genhead. I am wildly thrilled to invite him to come on for the second time to talk with me again about sales. And I am going to allow Pat to tell you a little bit about Genhead and their mission. So Pat, welcome again to the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your business now, Genhead?
Sure, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me again. Genhead is breaking new ground in AI lead generation and RevOps. And we are using artificial intelligence in every part of a company's front end. So everything from lead generation to marketing automation to sales automation and CRM activities. We are a single location that can manage all of that under one app. And all your RevOps can be now managed in one place. And we can leverage AI to make it as effective and cost-effective as possible for small to medium-sized businesses. So small businesses can actually now join the AI revolution and benefit from it using Genhead, and it's very exciting.
It is because I'm obviously a client customer of Genhead. I use Gen Suite, and it is an amazing tool. It really takes you from 0 to 100.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, every day we're doing new things. I mean, we literally added a feature on Sunday that is going live on Thursday, or went live, Thursday, went live today. That's how fast AI is making our business change for our clients. And it's so exciting, to be a part of it. And to watch these kids, and I call them kids because I've been around for a while, be able to take ideas that people that are more seasoned like ourselves have, is it possible to do this? And they go, sure, give me a day. And the next thing you know, you have the ability now to do, X, Y, Z. And it's just incredible to be a part of it.
So wait a second. Was I notified of the new feature that's happening in my...
You're good. You will be.
Okay.
It's really cool. You'll
Awesome.
like it.
Awesome.
You'll like it.
Yes. And I always look forward to the new features that pop up as, as a ground level, user of the suite, and being able to obviously then convey that to, people that I work with on how they need to be using the product, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's neat.
yeah. Yeah, and I've only scratched the surface as I've continued to use the product, and continue to learn new things on my own as I navigate through it. So it's definitely fun. So obviously I didn't bring you in here or bring you on to sit here and talk all day long about selling your product. However, I'm sure that you and I could do that all day. But
I could do that, but I think we're here to talk about a topic that we worked on together. So why don't we should probably get into that.
right before everybody goes, okay, what are they doing? Having a
Yeah.
sales podcast where they're just going to sell us stuff? So we talked prior to this about the idea that you know entrepreneurs are salespeople, but salespeople as entrepreneurs. The whole
Right.
premise that, and so let's dive into that, the whole concept that one, a salesperson taking more of that entrepreneurial type mindset, would it be?
Right.
Or
Yep. Yep.
yeah, so let's
Yeah.
let's dive into that.
Yeah. So what we were talking about the other day, and it just sort of came to me as we were just sort of bouncing ideas off of each other, is that salespeople need to be entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs, small business owners, need to be salespeople. And so, if we take sort of the first part of that and talk about that first, salespeople, good and great, and that's really what you talk about on your podcast, which is one of the things that I like about it, is you don't talk about how to be a mediocre salespeople. You talk about how to be a great salesperson.
Mhm.
And so I really believe to be a great salesperson, you have to take an entrepreneurial mindset, concept, however you want to phrase it, or get your head around it. You have to feel like you are in business for yourself. And if you have an employer, let's say you're a salesperson for a company, to feel like that company is your biggest supplier, but you are in business for yourself. Because if you don't have that kind of mindset, you will have limits to how well you can ever do. You will
Mhm.
put limits on yourself. Either you will do them purposefully, or they will just float in your mind. Well, I can only make this many calls today because that's what the company says. You're supposed to make 50 calls. So I made my 50 calls and I'm done. Right. That's what an employee does. What great salespeople do is they throw that out and they say, I need to hit my personal goals for my family and for me as a high achiever. And I don't care what the company says. I don't care if the company says make 50 calls. I'm going to make 80 calls
Mhm.
because I know that I need to hit that ultimate outcome.
And here,
And so, go
sorry.
ahead.
And what you're saying is completely resonating with me right now, because anytime anybody set a bar for me, whether it be in high school sports, whether it be in, the and when somebody said to me personally, so now I'm it's resonating with me here for just a moment, but it was, oh, you can't do this, or here's what, your expectations. It was always, oh, well, you think that's all I can do? Great. I'm going to do this. And that was always the thing that, well, I'm going to blow that record out of the water. And
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. In my entire career, And I've sold about $1 billion of product in my career. I never had a quota,
Mhm.
but I was always a high achiever. And my bosses never felt that they needed to give me a quota because I was difficult for them because I was bringing in so much business that they had to figure out how to supply it, right? Because
Mhm.
I had a mindset that I was my own little business, I was my own little unit. And it doesn't make you not attached to the company that you work for. In fact, it makes you more attached to them
Mhm.
because they become reliant on you more than anything else because you're their engine.
Mhm.
Okay. When you become the top salesperson, you become the top sales earner for one. Okay. But you also become their growth engine. And they will come to you and say, okay, you are doing something that is different than everybody else. How are you doing this?
Right.
Right. But a lot of times those high achievers don't have time to deal with the people that are not willing to make the sacrifices.
Right.
And that gap between I'm going to make my 50 calls because that's what the company says, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to hit my personal goals. That gap is the gap between good and great.
Mhm.
And I think it's an entrepreneurial mindset that I'm in business for myself.
Absolutely. And this goes back. So I'm gonna do a callback here really quick to the first conversation that I had with Sarah Bauer on episode 1, where we talked about sales being the only profession in the world where you can write your own ticket, where
Absolutely unlimited.
you are paid for, you are paid exactly what you are worth. Meaning that if you go in and you want to just meet the quota that your company sets for you, you are being paid exactly what they told you that you would be paid, basically. But if you decide that, wait a second, I don't want to make the $120,000 that they said that I could make in my first or second year. I want to make the 150,000. I want to make the 180,000. I want to make the 100, which is why great salespeople always look to make sure that there is no cap. Am I going to be capped if I hit 200,000 and then I can't get any higher? Well, that's not the job for me.
Yep.
Like I want to
Yep.
be able to know that the sky is, that the moon, that the universe is, and I'm flailing my hands, that is the absolute limit, because I, I don't I don't want anybody to have to put me in a box and say, here's what you're going to make. And there are people out there. We need everybody else. We need everybody else to know that this year I'm going to make 80,000 and that I'm perfectly comfortable with that. And then next year, hopefully they'll give me my 3% raise, and I will continue to make my way up that ladder, and I'm going to be comfortable and I'm going to be happy and I'm secure. But then there's the other side of the world where, like, hey, I will work for my whatever base, $60,000 base, and I will go out and I'll make 200,000 at the end of the year because I worked my butt off to be the best at what I was selling. But
Yeah.
that
I
takes
never
somebody,
I never put caps. Every job, every sales job that I hired for, and I put that in the job description that your earnings are unlimited
right?
because I didn't want somebody that was comfortable with having their earnings capped.
Right. And there shouldn't be. If the company is making money, why are we capping what the salesperson's
Yeah.
capable of making? And again, going back to your point, if the person looks at this, if I, as the salesperson, go, my company is also my client. and you treat them as, okay, they're also my client and my, like you said, the engine to be able to support my other clients. So I'm in the middle. I'm the entrepreneur. I treat them like a client here. I
Putting
treat my
them
clients.
together. Yep.
I marry them together to make the happy match. You truly are acting as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. You are selling the products or services that your company that pays you provides to the marketplace at large. That makes sense. And you are putting you're marrying those things together. But you're doing it. The other part of this that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that we hit is high achievers that have the entrepreneurial mindset not only do not limit themselves from an activity standpoint, which is important. It is hard work. I mean, the activity is hard work.
Right.
Sometimes it can be a grind. Sometimes it can be tough. There's a lot of doors to knock on and things like that, even if we're doing it virtually. But the other side of it is creativity. High achievers are creative. They don't follow the basic script of how to find new business.
Right.
And so they will find a new way to knock on a new door. They will go to networking events, or they will go to chamber of commerce. They'll go. I mean, and those are real basic ones, but they will find where their market goes, and they will get there, and they will become a part of their marketplace, and that allows them to be a trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And when they become a trusted advisor, they're no longer selling anything. They're providing value to their marketplace, and the product or service that they're providing is just flows in because that's what their market needs.
Right.
And so that creativity combined with the hard work and the feeling that I'm in business for myself, those three areas, I think, define a high performing salesperson, regardless of market or market conditions.
And here's why, because they are top of mind. They're the trusted advisor. They're the person who's constantly in front of everybody so that when their network, their community, their people go, oh, I know somebody who has that problem.
Yep.
I'll talk
They're the
to.
person.
They're the person.
Right.
Even it, and everybody, when I think of when I have a plumbing problem, I have my person. When I
You got a
have,
guy, right?
I got it. I
We
got a
joke
guy.
about it.
Right.
You got a guy.
Right. And so, and in my network, the first thing that I do when I have something that I need, when I have a need, when I think, oh, I need a landscaper, I need this, I need that. The first thing I do is go to my community, because my
Right.
community has a guy, and we say a guy, a gal, a person.
Right.
We got a person.
It's no longer a guy, but we joke and I got a guy, right?
Exactly.
It's like a thing, right?
Right. And
And
if you,
the great salespeople become that person.
correct.
And they do it by those three tenets,
Right.
of creativity, work ethic, and sort of stick to itiveness is another big part of it. Is if it doesn't work once, they don't give up.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And that's really a big part.
and in my coaching, I talk about the 3 buckets to success. And you have to hit all of them. You can't deny your cold calling. You can't deny your social. And when I talk about social being not just your being out and networking, but also your social posting and that type
Yeah.
of thing. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Digital is key now.
correct. There are multiple different avenues that you have to make sure that you're continuously, and you're in person, all the different things that you have to make sure that you're now, as we transition into an entrepreneur as a salesperson, I'm going to just make this last statement because the other thing that a salesperson, even representing a company, what they're doing here is branding themselves. And people forget. They're like, no, I'm with a company. I don't need to be on
Yeah,
LinkedIn
absolutely.
positioning. But here's the thing. You're branding yourself as the expert in fill in the blank for that company. And even if you leave that company, you still want to serve that same industry. If you've really positioned yourself properly, sometimes your clients follow you
Wow.
because they
And then
love you.
you bring up an excellent point, and it's a good transition point because it's one of the anchors of both great salespeople and great entrepreneurs,
Correct.
and both of them, and that's personal branding, because an entrepreneur needs personal branding,
Hmm.
and great salespeople need personal branding.
Correct.
Uh, and yes, it's tied in with their corporate roles, but they also need to have branding that is separate from that.
Hmm.
And it's very important today. I post on LinkedIn. I try to post every day. I'm not getting to every day yet, but I'm doing probably every other day right now.
You're doing great.
What where I'm trying to post on, I've got like 5 topics that I think I know something about, and I'm trying to post on one of those 5 topics every day. That's my goal,
Right.
and I'm getting there. I'm working on it, and that is part of my personal brand,
Hmm.
is to try to add value to my network on LinkedIn, which is pretty good, and share some things that I think that I know. Um, and that is upping my personal brand. Yes, it helps Genhead, but it's not coming from Genhead. It's coming from me.
Right.
And good and great salespeople and good and great entrepreneurs understand that they need to be out there in the digital marketplace, especially also person to person, working on their personal brand, because that helps them to become a trusted advisor,
Correct.
a
A
trusted
sub
expert.
and a subject matter expert in their area of expertise. And
Correct.
and here's an example, people who knew me from my previous career, HR. So I had an HR podcast, right? When I pivoted to Love Your Sales, people were still going, wait, can I still come to you with my HR questions? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. No, I'm really more of a sales, trying to do the sales thing. But I had branded myself for so many years in that space. I did what I was planning on doing. And if you can do that to the point where it's actually hard to separate yourself at that point, where people are like, wait, that is what that is, and it follows you, you've just branded yourself the right way.
Right. Right.
You've just, I
No,
mean,
that branding is important. And so as we start to talk about the entrepreneur as a salesperson, this is where we start to talk about a pain point, because I know a lot of solopreneurs, through various organizations that I belong to.
Mm-hmm.
And the prototypical solopreneur is someone who is really good at doing something, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. Maybe it's coaching, maybe they're a plumber, maybe they're a welder, maybe they're an accountant. They could be an attorney, whatever it is. But they're good at a skill, and they want to go out and get into business for themselves. Great. The problem then lies that they're good at what they do, but they're not necessarily great at running a business,
Right.
right? And you and I have seen our share of these people,
Right.
and they're really good people and lovely people and really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens a lot of times is they start this, and maybe they even have a customer when they start. A lot of times that's what happens is they have a relationship with someone or a couple people, and they say, you know what, that's enough for me to get started, and they get started.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bills start coming in, and they start figuring out that they can't make a living on two customers, and they start panicking because they don't really know what to do. Well, what you have to do is add gas to the fire. And the gas are new customers. And the way to get new customers is through selling, folks.
And they
And so
become
they have,
wildly disappointed when they wake up one morning going, oh, I have to be a salesperson?
and they hate it. And they hate it, right? They hate the concept of it. The very idea of an attorney, let's say, or an accountant having to go and in their mind lower themselves to be a salesperson to make their business work is just awful,
Right.
right? But the reality is that every entrepreneur has to be a salesperson. And and the best way that I've coached friends of mine that have been in that situation is to not feel like you're a salesperson, but feel like you're a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Because what entrepreneurs need to do, that's a little different than what salespeople need to do. Because entrepreneurs get some grace in the marketplace. Because the marketplace is not expecting an attorney necessarily, let's say. Well, attorneys might be a little bit different because attorneys have their own little place in the world. But let's just say an accountant. The marketplace is not expecting an accountant to be a great salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
But if an accountant can tell a compelling story about why they are where they are and what makes them different than other accountants, that's kind of good enough.
Right.
But they have to do it to people. They have to get out of their chairs, get out in the world, and they have to do it to people that they don't know.
Right.
And that people is sales. Now you're
And
telling a story which makes it softer and easier and better for them to handle, because it's not so much, hey, do you want to buy something? It's just leading them down the path of, hey, you know what? I could use that. And we had a lot of that with Genhead in the early days, that I wasn't selling anything. I was just, people were asking me after I sold my last company, hey, what are you doing? And I
right.
would tell them what we were doing with Genhead, and people would go, I want that. And I
Right.
go, oh, okay. Let's get together and talk about that. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't, even though I was historically in the sales and marketing parts of businesses, I really wasn't selling it. I
Mm-hmm.
was just talking to people about what I was doing.
And now
And so,
and I'm going to throw this in here for a second, Pat, because not only as an entrepreneur, who starts off, has a couple of customers and clients, they have to execute on this. And it, for the most part, you're everything. You're executing on it. You're doing the work. You're getting your website up and running. You're paying the
Taking out the
bills.
garbage. You're making your own coffee. You're doing everything.
You're vacuuming your office and cleaning it and making sure that all of the things are being done. And then now what we're saying is, yeah, lawyers, accountants, whatever you might be. By the way, you now have to get out there, get out of your comfort zone of being behind a desk and talking people through their accounting. You also have to sell. If you want to grow, if you want to be there in a year from now or 2 years from now, you also have to be able to continue to sell the product to bring in new clients. And no, I'm not trying to do shock factor. I'm not trying to do like, oh my God, I shouldn't do this. It's the reality of entrepreneurship. And unless you are an immediate, like, I want this, I have to, unless you are an actual physical location where people are drawn in to buy your product, like a McDonald's, people aren't going to just walk in your door. Now, and Pat, you have seen plenty of attorneys stand up and do amazing pitches where you're like, wow, okay, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've seen an accountants as well, where they stand up and they do their 30-second pitch, and you're like, I didn't know that, accountants got
I
out
need
there.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And those are the people that I didn't, at the time that I first met them, I was still in corporate, and I went, oh, I'll never use them. But now I'm their client, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay. I had no idea that, the 4 years ago when I first saw her do her 30-second pitch, that one day I would become her client.
Exactly. Well, and again, as an entrepreneur, you get to tell your story because it's your story. You own it.
Right.
Right. Without doing that, you will die.
Right.
And the number one reason that small businesses fail, and they fail at a very high rate, and the number one reason, and it's the overwhelming reason, is that they run out of cash.
Right.
If you don't have cash, you're out of business. And the number one reason that they run out of cash is that they don't have enough sales.
Right.
So it's a very simple equation. You need gas to make the car run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You need to bring in new business. You must do this. It's also the same thing for a salesperson. A salesperson must bring in new business because you have a leaky bucket. You just don't know how leaky it is because you're losing clients either to new technologies or competitors or changes in market or whatever it is. You're losing business that you have right now, and you have to keep filling that bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for entrepreneurs. And I think that's why it's important that we talk about that great salespeople are entrepreneurs, and great entrepreneurs also recognize that they have to do sales
Right.
in some way or another. Now they
Mm-hmm.
get a little grace. I worked for a very small manufacturing company, which we turned into a nice sized manufacturing company together. And my first boss there, who was the founder of the company, and I would go on sales calls. And there's some kind of rules to sales where you want to speak less than the client does. You want to ask some leading questions and get them talking and all of those kind of things. And you don't want to promote too much and all that kind of stuff. And this guy followed none of the rules.
Oh boy.
He would go in there, he would go in there and he would say, listen, I founded this company and here's what we're about. And he would just completely not follow any of the rules. And people would buy. They would buy because he was sincere and he was the owner of the place.
Right.
And he was very likable, first of all, and I still like him. He was the entrepreneur. And people gave him a lot of grace. If I tried to do that as just the account executive, which was my title at the time,
Right.
I would get hammered. But he could come in as the president, CEO, and founder and say, listen, this is why we founded this company.
Right.
This is what we're about. And if you want that, we're your guy.
Mm-hmm.
And people would go, I want that. And that's what entrepreneurs can do. They don't need to necessarily, learn every nuance that salespeople need to learn. But what they do have to do is get their butt out of their chair and get out there and get telling their story.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't do that, they're going to go out of business.
They have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because
Exactly.
for the most part, unless and one of the main questions that I ask everybody that I work with, everybody that comes in either as a consulting client or as a new business that I'm assisting in another way, have you ever been a salesperson? And 9 times out of 10, by the time they're coming to me, they're like, no, I haven't. And it's like, okay, so now I know where to start. Because most likely they don't even know how to conduct a discovery call. Most likely they don't even know. And so often you hear all the advice out there that, you go to TikTok, it's always about how to close. We're going to teach you how to close. Well, wait a second. What about teaching how to just have a conversation, a sales conversation? What about the first steps? What about getting somebody to, open up to you about what their true need is, not what their want is? Because quite often what their want is and what their need is don't totally match.
I generally, to be honest with you, in this stage of my career, I generally don't close. I don't. We
People
get to a
close
point where it's
themselves.
like, I closed a big deal for us last Friday,
Right.
and we got done talking through all the details of what they wanted and what we could do and how we would do it and the timelines, and we just went through the project and back and forth and showed them what Gen Suite looked like and how it would work, and we just talked.
Right.
And we got done, and I said, well, do you want to buy it?
Right. That's the beauty.
Yeah. And they went, yeah, we do. And I said, okay, so we'll get you a contract and we'll start next week. And and the guy went, yeah, good. And that was it.
And that's the beauty of when you become so seasoned, is that your conversation, you've gotten to the point where your conversation leads them into closing themselves. Is that you're never in a state of, okay, now let's get to the objections. Let's overcome the objections. Let's do the soft close. Let's do the hard close. You've gotten so good at figuring out how to overcome all of the objections in a simple conversation that you don't even have to. And then you've gotten so comfortable that you go, okay, are you ready to, is there any final questions that you have that I haven't covered? Great. Okay. So is this the right product for you? Do you want to buy? Yeah, I do.
Or not.
Okay. Excellent. So here's the next steps. This is our process. And
right.
And that is the beauty of when you get to a point in your career where you go, wow, I've figured this out. Like, and I remember my early days where I would have my proposal and I'd go in and I'd go through all the steps, and then I'd be like, is there any questions? And then they would come back with an objection, and I'd go back to the office and I'm like, how do I overcome this objection? And blah, blah, blah. And I'd work through all the steps and I'd figure it all out. And nowadays there's no, you know, there's I don't even think about what those objections would look like because I'm already having conversations to put them to bed before they even come up in the conversation.
Yeah, you work really hard on the front end.
Correct.
We when we were younger, we were too afraid to work hard on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
We were so thrilled that we had a prospect,
Coming in with our
right? With our
binders of
binders
information.
and our little briefcases and all that kind of stuff, right? And we were so thrilled that we had a prospect that we wouldn't challenge them ever
Right. Correct.
because we didn't want to lose them.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is that we wouldn't deal with any kind of questions or is this a fit or does this work or what are your needs or any of those kind of things on the front end because we didn't want to lose them. We were so excited that it was like we had a new puppy and we were like, we don't care if it pees on the floor. Just give me the thing, and so then we get to the end and we hadn't done the front end work. And so that's when we got all the objections.
Right.
And so it got to be hard at the back end.
Right.
Now, when you're more seasoned, you realize that all the work is on the front end. That's where you find out if it's a fit.
Right.
And if you do that right, then you just go through and you're just exploring together whether or not this product, service, whatever it might be, is the right thing for both of you.
Correct.
Because you may have a great product that works for them, but they may not have the budget. So you may say, you know what, this doesn't work for us. I'm sorry.
Correct. Yes. And that is the beauty of becoming that final. That is the beauty of getting to, well, first being an entrepreneur and being able to not have to go back to your boss and be like, I decided not to work with them and have your boss go, what do you mean? But being able to make those decisions. I think the first time that I said, this isn't the right fit was the most liberating, and I went, wow, that felt great. Like, I don't want to work with that person and they're not going to be a good fit for me. It just felt great to be able to say, I don't have to. Like but Pat, we are coming to time. I would love to continue this conversation, but we are coming to time. So 30 seconds, shameless pitch. If you would like to, continue on with a little bit more information about Genhead or anything else, actually. So the floor is yours.
Sure. I appreciate that. Well, as I said earlier, Genhead is leading the way with AI lead generation and marketing automation for small to medium-sized businesses. We work with everybody from solopreneurs to companies up to 100 employees, and we help them leverage AI to grow their businesses fast. And we've been very successful doing so. We are a growing concern and have experts in AI, marketing, website design, SEO, everything a small business needs to be able to take advantage of the new area of rev ops. And that's where revenue generation meets sales operations. And bringing those two areas together helps small to medium-sized businesses manage everything that happens on the front end of your business. So everything on the sales side and on the pre-sales side gets managed and automated so that your customers are constantly getting communicated with, for example, where their orders are or customer service type things, sales issues, all of those kind of things are automated using AI. And it's a very, very cool system. You can go to www.genhead, or you can dial 844 Genhead and speak to us, and we'd be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. And in the show notes, you will be able to find the links. You will be able to find the information on how to contact Genhead and Pat and his team. So again, Pat, thank you so much for this awesome conversation.
Absolutely. It was great talking to you again, Leanne. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for joining us for Love Your Sales. For more, connect with Leanne on LinkedIn and be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating and review. We'd love to hear what you think. Looking for a way to take your sales process to the next level? Visit us at loveyoursales.com to find out more about how Leanne can take your organization to new revenue heights. And be sure to join us next time for more great ways to love your customers so they love your sales.